so excited to have everyone here. We've got a good turnout. People are rolling in on Facebook. Just wanted to introduce myself, Eira Corral Sepúlveda. I'm Commissioner of the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. And it's a Friday afternoon, so we're going to have some fun today. This is a fun, quirky way to get to know what's going on in our waterways. Did you know that our Chicago Area Waterway System is getting fishier? Did you? I don't know. I bet a lot of people don't. Actually, before we started, we were sharing that depending, we can tell how long you've lived in Chicago depending on your sentiment about our waterways. Some people have still that notion from back in the day that our water systems were not the best. So we appreciate that we're looking to evolve on that perspective. We also wanted to make sure that you guys meet Austin Happel and John Quail. Say guys, hi guys.
Hi everybody, thanks for coming.
John Quail is the Director of Policy and Conservation at Friends of the Chicago River. He's been a leader at Friends for over 20 years, where he's been recognized as an effective force who has successfully pushed for environmentalism, sustainability, and conservation in policy making. Please introduce yourself, Austin. I'm sorry, John.
Hi everybody, thanks for coming. That pretty much covers it. Thank you, Commissioner. It's going to be a fun talk today, so I really look forward to it. Thanks.
Awesome, very good. And then we also have Dr. Austin Happel, research biologist at the Shed Aquarium Urban Freshwater Division. Dr. Happel is an expert in freshwater ecology within the Great Lakes. His research has added tremendous insight into fish biology, as well as the environments and nutrients fish need to thrive. Dr. Happel has gone beyond his role as researcher to connect with government and advocacy institutions to implement needed change. Say hello, Dr. Austin, and introduce yourselves.
Hey everyone, thanks Commissioner for hosting this event. It's great to be here. And like she said, I do a lot of work studying fish and how they live within our area, especially how they live in the Chicago River. So it's exciting to see and talk to people and convince them that there is life in our area and in those waters.
Well, thank you guys so much. We are going to go into our presentation, just give a little bit of an overview of some of the things that we've been doing. In 2020, almost 80 fish species were reported in our waterways network, which is a huge increase from the mere 10 that were reported in 1974. So we're going to go a little bit into that. And as the local agency that created most of the Chicago Area Waterway System, which a lot of people call CAWS. So if you hear us say CAWS, that's what we're talking about. And it's charged with protecting it. So that's one of our main missions. The MWRD has played an important role in increasing the biodiversity in our local aquatic ecosystems, but we haven't done it alone. We have these two great champions, and we're going to get to know a little bit. So I'm going to share my screen. Give me, guys, just a sec. A little head there. There we go. Something's fishy. Biodiversity in the Chicago River. So you guys will see here.
Oh, can't see your screen yet.
Oh, you can't see my screen? Oh, well, hold on. Let's take care of that. There we go. Are we good?
Yep.
Yep. All right, great. Awesome. All right, so we're going to see a picture here. This is Bubbly Creek in the early 1900s. Now, things were so bad, you guys, that it was said that a chicken could walk across the yuck and guck and pollution of Bubbly Creek. So this is 1900s. This is Bubbly Creek today. Great improvements, still a lot to be done, but it's looking a lot greener. It's looking a lot cleaner. There's a great history of pollution in our waterway systems because we didn't have sufficient infrastructure. We didn't have the environmental protections. Back in 1974, as I mentioned earlier, we only had 10 fish species in all of the CAWS. And if you were going out fishing, for example, and you were looking to catch some fish, you were likely at one location to just be able to find 3 species of fish. So that's no fun when you're trying to go fishing, right? What have we done? What is it that has changed things over time? So we have had systemic infrastructure changes, we've had direct support to the CAWS ecosystem, and we've done monitoring and research. So those 3 things have really gotten us to a much better place today. So let's go over some of the systemic changes. The tunnel and reservoir plan, which we also call TARP. You'll hear this a lot. TARP, 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 TARP. It stands for Tunnel and Reservoir Plan. And these first tunnels were built in 1981. And the current capacity is about 12 million gallons. They're huge. I haven't been inside one of the tunnels. I've seen pictures of them, and it's just really awesome. But I have been down below where you can see the outline of the tunnels, and it is quite a sight. Now, one of the great things that this TARP system has done is that it has reduced our combined sewer overflows. And later on, we'll see why that is so critical, that we reduce our combined sewer overflows. And you'll note here the bottom picture, that's one of our reservoirs. So that's been called Godzilla's bathtub from time to time, which I think it's kind of a cool way to try to picture like how big and immense this thing is. So these systemic changes in infrastructure have also been very helpful. In 2014, the Illinois General Assembly gave the MWRD jurisdiction over our stormwater management. So we've been doing that for about 15 years or so. Very important, especially when you consider that climate change has brought in a lot of rain to our region. Some of these things have been, space to grow. We've got rain gardens, rain barrels, permeable pavement, a lot of great investments that we've made in green infrastructure. And the results, well, we have had more infrastructure capacity with both our gray and green infrastructure, which means we have been able to reduce the CSOs, combined sewer overflows. That means we have a healthier waterway. Waterway support. So the SEPA stations, these are the side stream elevated pool aeration stations. And not only do they do good stuff, look how cool they look. These are two really beautiful, so they're a visual asset as well. And these 5 stations are built along slow moving Calumet waterways. It improves the water quality. It adds dissolved oxygen to the waterways, which helps support our aquatic life. And it also helps eliminate odors. All right, and we have waterway support. Sorry, I've been moving my mouse, guys. Pre-treatment and disinfection. So this is a great way that we can really make some impact too. So the pre-treatment process, it controls the wastewater discharge from commercial and industrial changes. Back in 2016, the MWRD implemented disinfection in the O'Brien and the Calumet WRPs, and the contamination downstream of WRPs has decreased quite a bit. Waterway support also means debris removal. So we've got these awesome boats. You can see one of them here at work. And we have 75 miles of navigable waterways. The small stream maintenance program removes down trees. After big storms, we might have trees that fall into the water systems, create quite a bit of problems. So they'll help with that. There's density of weeds, invasive plants. There's a lot of things that happens. The erosion has also been quite problematic, especially with the increase of rain. And we have land. So we are actually the second largest landowner in Cook County. Most of the land is along our waterways, and we have our land use policy. We've been able to implement green infrastructure and native landscaping provisions to protect and support our water systems. And partnerships. We have amazing partners like the Shed, like Friends of the Rivers, and many others throughout all of Cook County, and we'll go over some of them. The Urban Rivers Wild Mile of floating aquatic vegetation. This is super cool. I really like this. If we put these on the water, these are just floating, and they really help support the underwater habitat and ecosystems. So those roots really help provide a space where more animals and fish species and microbes can live. We also have Catfish Tunnels. Now, I did not know this. I just learned this through this presentation, quite frankly. And see these tunnels here. So they like to burrow in tunnels, and that's where they like to, hang out, lay their fish, feel safe. So, we all need our safe space. Catfish like tunnels. Native plants and invasive species removal, that's been incredibly important. We want to get rid of all these invasive species that are, taking over and suffocating essentially our native plants. And our native plants are incredibly important because they have better capacity and better root systems to be able to absorb the water that we receive in the region. And of course, river cleanups, we want to make sure that we're cleaning up the river. So the result of all of this has been cleaner waterways. We have more consistent water quality throughout the entire system. So it's not so much that you have, this part of the river is clean, but this one it's not. The consistency is very important because, fish don't know about boundaries and jurisdictions. They like to kind of swim around and do their thing and go all over the place. We have a very vibrant ecosystem that supports that population growth. Now, when it comes to monitoring and research, that's the third thing that we've really focused on, water quality and sampling. So I've gotten to see a lot of these labs. Our last visit, we got to see the amazing equipment and lab techs that I get to work on this all the time, and we're constantly just making sure that the quality and the health of the microbial communities is healthy. These microbes, they're tiny, they're teeny tiny. You may not see them, but they're very, very critical to making sure that we have a very healthy environment underwater. We do this all throughout Cook County. We take samplings, and we're doing it on continuous, but also on a monthly basis. So we do the surveying of fish species. Now, I don't know how many of you like to go fishing, but if you do, this might be a great career for you because you get to have fun in fact, I joke. It's not just fishing, but it's a little bit of that. What you do is you go out into the waterways and you are looking for fish. You're sampling, making sure that you take note of all the species that are available. And since 1985, MWRD has sampled fish within the CAWS to monitor how the fish species have responded to the things that we've implemented. So we've gotten healthier waterways, and we want to thank the Shed Aquarium and you guys have really been strong supporters of making sure that our research is strong. So thank you so much for that. So the result of that has been cleaner, more vibrant aquatic systems. Again, very important to have a vibrant aquatic system. You want to have biodiversity in our waterways. And there's a scientific understanding of how we can do that, how we can protect, how we can cultivate these healthy waterways. We're just not just doing guessing work. There is a scientific process to do it, and it enhances our ability to take measures that support the increased biodiversity. All right, so what has our impact been? Well, almost 80 fish species reported in 2020. Check out all of these fish species that are listed. And then this little guy is huge. Well, little girl, I should say. So she's a mama fish, and she's nice and chunky. She's carrying baby eggs. We like to see that. That means that if we have a healthy environment for our mama fishes to lay eggs. And this is another one of those floating ecosystems that we talked about. All right, so I love this pic. It really puts into perspective. Let's see. So if you see here, now my screen, I can't see it too well, but this is probably, it looks like 80s. We stop chlorinating the water that goes out into our water system. So just doing that, look what it does to increase the biodiversity. Then we have all of our tunnel and reservoir, well, not all, but the tunnel and reservoir project goes live. It becomes operational, and that is incredibly helpful. You see a big increase, and it just keeps going up as we start to oxygenate the water to really make sure that it's healthy, that there's proper oxygen levels in the water systems. And this one's a little bit of a snoozer, you guys, but it's very, very important. John's laughing. I think John commented like, that one's kind of boring. But what this represents is just Remember when I said earlier, if you go fishing, you're only going to find 3 species? Well, this is, if you go fishing, if anyone's gone fishing in our waterways, this is how our the richness of our species has grown within a single location of our waterways. So you're really bound to find way more fish. You can see my mouse, right? In 2020 versus, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, or early 2000s even. So this is just to all you fishermen and ladies out there. And then this one's kind of cool. I really like seeing. These are our top 10 fish species, and you can see how it's incremented. But the most important thing is this line up here. You see, you can tell that as combined sewer overflows were common and they've decreased in their commonality, they've been greatly reduced. You see a lot more of these fish. And so that's the goal, to reduce the combined sewer overflows. We're still working on that. They're much, they happen with less frequency. They do happen from time to time. Climate change is really kicking our butt when it comes to that, but we're working on that. All right, so how can you get involved? Check out this fish that I caught with my bare hands. I joke. These fish were in one of our special events, and it was really fun to see them up close and hold them. I want to thank the Forest Preserve for making that possible, making it possible for me to have my fishtail of catching fish with my bare hands. Please volunteer. This is our email, and the Shed Aquarium also has a tab on their page. And the Friends of the Chicago River also has a tab on their page to volunteer and stay connected. We are on social media at AdaH2O, at Shed Aquarium, and at the Chicago River. And now I'm going to stop sharing my screen. There we go. And open it up to our panel discussion. So Austin, John. Now, do you guys like to go fishing, Austin, John?
I don't know who should go first. Well, I mean, my job entails technically going fishing, but after you go out on some of those sampling boats and see how many fish are in a water body, you get real bored with hook and line normal angling, because you know that there's hundreds of fish and you can't catch a single one. So I'm not much of an angler, but I still go out and catch fish for, I guess, for a living.
Yeah, and I guess maybe that comes with the territory, because I have a father that you can't stop from trout fishing, and I have a daughter that you can't stop from catching bluegills. But when I go fishing, it's with electricity and from a boat, so it's a different deal, to Austin's point. So I can I can bait a hook and take a fish off, but it's not something I do in my free time necessarily.
Okay, got it. Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about your work and what projects you guys are currently focused on. And we'll start with you, Austin.
Sure. So I'm a research biologist at the Shed Aquarium, which is in downtown Chicago. I run a program focused on urban waterways and how fish live within our cities, and how we can maybe better promote biodiversity within the waterways across any city in the globe. I'd use the Chicago Area Waterways as sort of my model system as the most altered waterway in the world. Not only have we constructed most of it, but we've constructed it over a continental divide, so it flows in a way that's not the normal way geology would have it. And then most of the water that's in the waterways is actually pushed from the effluent of 3 of the world's largest wastewater treatment plants. So this river or waterway doesn't operate like anything we normally study. So trying to figure out what promotes biodiversity now can really help us as we build up our city and build up our riverfronts into the future. And so that's a lot of the high level work that I do. I accomplish that by working closely with the MWRD. They collect a ton of data, and I spend a lot of time turning that data into stories. So then I get the fun job of coming to events like this and talking to people about some of those stories.
Awesome. Thanks so much. John, what are you working on?
Yeah, so I do, I've entirely focused on the Chicago River system, so the Calumet River, the Lily Calumet River, the North Branch of the Chicago River. And everything we do is really focused on making the river a better place for the people, plants, and animals that are in it. So we've done, your slides are great because they highlight a lot of the work that we did and a lot of the work that we did in conjunction with the district. And the snoozer slide, I think, is maybe one of the more important slides because it's great to know that there's 80 fish in the system. But right now, I think a lot of the work that we're focused on is making sure those fish are in the right places and the habitat is available for those fish in the right places. And to that end, we do projects like, you know, for today's discussion, the catfish cavities. We do an annual planting project. We focused on the North Shore Channel, and this year we focused on the Little Calumet, and we'll be back with the Little Calumet next year. We do that in conjunction with the shed, where we have volunteers go out and plant water willow and lizard's tail. Right in the river, and that's good habitat for fish and for lots of other things. Maggie Jones, that works for us on our staff, does a ton of work with the Forest Preserve District, and she's working with SEPA Station #1 right now to do turtle habitat, because turtles are something that we have limited habitat for, but also are good indicator species of a healthy ecosystem and things like that. So a lot of the work that we do is highly focused on that. We work closely with the district because, as you highlighted, the district owns the second most amount of land in the county, and a lot of it's along our waterways. So that's our riverbanks and things like that. So we work really closely with the district. And then one of my favorite projects that I worked on that's you know, wrapping up now or growing in now is the dam removal project. So the River Park Dam, and that's a good example of moving fish around. We worked with the DNR, Steve Pescatelli there specifically, and for years he highlighted more habitat availability above that dam and more fish below that dam. And if we were able to take it down like what happened, that, you know, moves fish around. And I think that's even something that we saw with some fish that made it up to the Skokie lagoons from below that dam that wouldn't have been able to make it up there before.
And I think you both touched on this a little bit already, but the abundance of fish species, why is it important to the aquatic ecosystem? You know, other than you get to go fishing and there's more fish. All right, cool, who cares? But what is really truly important? What does it reflect, and how does it impact, how does this increase impact our environment?
I'm not, maybe I'll start, I guess. I like to describe ecosystems in terms of like a family unit. So the more individuals you have in it, the more efficient you have to be to keep things clean, to keep everyone fed, to find sleeping spots for them all. And so the more fish that we see within a water body, the more efficient that food web and that habitat provisions have to kind of be for all of them. And then on a different hand, if you start talking about the different types of species, I like to think of them as individual people. Each person's stressed out by different things and has different food preferences and different, say, housing preferences. The same thing with species. So each species gets stressed out by something different. They like to eat certain things and they're really picky about them, and they like to hide and spawn in different areas and are really picky about that. So seeing our species go from less than 3 to over 14 in 35 years is crazy good. It's awesome to see such a tripling in the number of species. And I saw someone kind of comment about if they're invasive or not. And most of them are things that are native to our area. We're actually not seeing a huge influx of invasive. So it's really cool to see those natives come in, because those are even pickier. Something that's invasive can usually handle almost anything you throw at them. So those all speak great things to how the water quality is doing and the habitat we're providing in this area.
And just to tag on to that, I think it also, like, up and down we focus a lot up and down that food web that Austin's talking about. So healthier fish means that the things that eat those fish are then healthier. So we have a pretty big mink population, and we have otters that we're trying to encourage to come back to the river, and turtles, like I mentioned, and water birds that eat those fish, and things like mussels that can use very specific species of fish to move around our river that now have the ability to do that, and maybe they didn't have that many years ago.
Awesome. Now, Dr. Happel, could you tell us a little bit more about the Shed Aquarium's Urban Freshwater Division and what important findings have come from your work?
Yeah, so some of the work that I started was looking for larval fish. Some of the, I guess, the field work, when I say I go fishing for a job, I'm actually looking for baby fish, little tiny guys in the water. I'm really interested in them because when we find a baby fish, that means the adult population's doing great.
Right.
They're able to find each other, they're eating enough that they're happy, they're finding shelter and not being eaten by all of the birds and turtles and mink in the area. But then also, a fish egg is super delicate. And so finding that it has turned into a baby and being able to figure out where that's happening can tell us a lot about the ecosystem. So we started studying where fish are spawning within the Chicago River, and we're finding that there's a big or a large amount of diversity within the south branch of the Chicago River, which if you think about where that's at, it's receiving water that's coming from downtown. And so it's really surprising that we're seeing the diversity of fish that we're seeing down there. That area also receives water from Bubbly Creek, which is usually has a pretty terrible rap. So we're really interested in now studying what's going on in that south branch and what aspects of that part of the waterway are promoting diversity there. So then we can use that to kind of promote diversity elsewhere within the river. And maybe a plug for this weekend, if you're interested in seeing this area, we have the Backwards River Festival occurring right on the banks of Bubbly Creek. So you can go down and actually interact with this part of the waterway.
I'm excited about that. It's on my weekend to-do list.
The weather looks great.
I know.
Shed's going to be hosting a catch and release fishing event. So if you've never gone fishing and want to prove to yourself that there are fish within the river, we're teaming up with the Illinois Department of Natural Resources to host a catch and release event. So.
Awesome. Thanks so much, John. And feel free to plug the event in the chat so that people can reach it. John, Friends of the River or Friends of the Chicago River, I should say, has been involved in cultivating underwater habitats for important fish species in the CAWS. Could you tell us about some of the species you have focused on and what unique provisions they need to thrive?
Yeah, so we've tried to do pilot and do innovative urban habitat really for the last 20 years, from our dam removal projects to the catfish cavities to the fish hotel that we did downtown. I think when we select species to focus on, we look for a couple different things. One is we look for a species that provides sort of multiple benefits. So with the catfish cavities, it provided a place for our native channel catfish to nest, but it also provided habitat for lots of insects and other fish. So we tried to pick something that we knew could be utilized by things other than just the catfish. Part of that also is that people like to fish for the catfish. So, and we're also promoting recreation with that kind of thing. Outside of that, when we do projects like the fish hotel downtown, we're really trying to find substrates and things. And once again, we worked really closely with Steve Pescatelli at the DNR to lots of different species that were on that 80 species list could utilize just for, at the time was a lack of habitat. What's great now is with the Riverwalk, a lot of habitat has been built into the construction of that. So we have a much greater amount of habitat along those seawalled environments than we did before. And one thing I want to tack on to Austin's previous comment is, in my time at Friends, one thing I think has been really consistent is when people have ever take a deeper dive into the Chicago River and taken a look at fish species, whether it was for the Asian carp work or things that they're doing, they've almost always been pleasantly surprised by what they've found. It's not been as denuded of fish as people think it is. It's all people are generally surprised by what they find, which is always encouraging.
All right, most important question of the day. What is your favorite fish? I don't have a favorite fish yet, but I have a top contender. We visited the Stickney plant, and apparently we have pet goldfish there. They are massive. They're like this big, pretty cool looking. And so that's a top contender. So sell me on your favorite fish. I might switch it up. We'll start with you, Austin.
Well, I'm gonna give you two for two very different reasons. One, if I put on my ecologist hat, so ecologist studies how animals interact with the environment. I'm super interested in a fish called the brook silverside, which is a native fish to the area, super delicate and super sensitive to water quality and water clarity, but we find them throughout Bubbly Creek and the South Branch of the Chicago River. So what the heck are they doing in that part of the waterway when you can't see very far? It's not known for having great water quality.
Oh.
So I'm interested to figure out like what is the species doing in this area? It's super cool to see that they're there. And how does that go against our perception? Yeah, always love puzzles. The second one, if I put on a biologist hat, so how fish live within areas, is a fish called the pond loach, which is technically an invasive in our area. But these guys, one, look really cool. They look like little worms and they swim like an eel through the water, but they've evolved a couple unique tactics. One, they can survive drying out. So they can live in a pond that dries out over the summer. And they kind of burrow down in the mud and make a little like cavity that they survive in. If that cavity happens to freeze over the winter, they can actually survive being frozen for periods of up to 60 days. Whoa. So crazy, like crazy biological.
They're like the zombie of the waterways.
Right, yeah. Which also leads, from a manager's perspective, they're hard to get rid of, right? So they hide.
Well, yeah, no kidding.
They can't, but super cool biology that they can survive those things.
Yeah.
Well, those are mine too.
Okay, that's a hard one. I mean, on one end, yes, those are some ninja fish right there. They're like indestructible. But they're invasive, so I'm not sure. So let's see what John's got going on.
Yeah, like Austin, I'm not sure I can narrow it down to just one. So I would say my favorite would be sort of your darters. So your Johnny darters and rainbow darters, I think, are cool little fish that tell us a lot about water quality that we find occasionally in the watershed. My aspirational favorite fish is the sturgeon. So many years ago, when we started especially looking at removing the North Branch Dam, they've restored the Milwaukee River for sturgeon spawning. That's not too far away. So that would be something that we have, potentially we could get to in the Chicago River down the road if we keep going up, keeping that curve up and to the right. And those are cool ancient fish. And then yellow perch are delicious. So there you go. Those are my three answers.
I like delicious. Okay. So let's give you guys an opportunity. I've seen a lot of questions come through, so we're going to ask one more question on my end, and then we'll move into the audience questions. So if you haven't posed your question or comment, go ahead and do that in the chat now. My final question is, what can we do? What can Cook County residents do throughout and strongly support the health of our waterways? And we'll start with you, Austin.
The first thing I usually tell people is to go out and enjoy them. The more people that are kayaking on them, fishing in them, walking along their banks, the easier it is for us to start fighting for them. But that is also your gateway to caring about them. So the more you kind of recreate on a resource, the more you care about it. And maybe not the first time, but maybe the 10th time you'll start cleaning up trash you see. Maybe the 20th time you'll start signing petitions. So going out and using the resource is a great way to give back to it.
Okay, so show it some love, build that connection so that you feel really invested in protecting it in the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. John?
Yeah, pretty much the same answer. Go out there and enjoy the river in any way that you can. And that's something over the past few years, as the rivers become, more active as a recreational asset, we've used that. People let us know when they see things that aren't right. So that gives us the ability to respond when something's not right that much faster, with people being out there taking care of the resource. And then is an alternative you can do without having to go to the river. is to sign up for overflow action day alerts through Friends or the MWRD. That ties directly to that combined sewer overflow issue that we talked about. So as much as we can in our houses or places of business control our impact when it rains a lot on the water quality, that could also have a really positive impact.
Yes, and you know what? The upside of that is that you have a perfectly legit excuse to skip laundry, skip dishes. I can't tell you, so we've started putting that out on our Facebook, and I can't tell you the amount of times that people are like, Ada, it's raining. Can I do my laundry? Can I run the dishwasher? But it is very important. You know, if you think of it collectively, it does create an impact. And when you reduce your use of water, especially during very big storms, it just increases the capacity for our systems, whether it's your local municipal system. You know, our MWRD system is pretty large, so it can absorb it. But if you consider that as the water is getting from, you know, your sidewalk, your driveway, your roof, getting into your local municipal system, by the time it gets into the MWRD system, sometimes it's very difficult to make sure that it doesn't you know, become overcapacitated. So unfortunately, from time to time, we do have to have some combined sewer overflows that go into our waterways. It's not good, but the alternative is having sewage going into people's homes. And if you are reducing your use of water, that just helps make sure that the system has capacity for the stormwater, and it's not managing as much of your water that you're using to you know, wash dishes or, you know, load your laundry. Those are very heavy uses of water. So water conservation, guys. And let's go to the questions. I've got a few questions lined up here. All right, so what are some of the new fish species and where are they coming from? Or more specifically is a question, where are the new fish species coming from? Is there a way other than decreasing CSOs that TARP has impacted the water quality? And let's go with you, John, on that.
Okay, so I'm going to let Austin correct me if and when I am wrong. So the new fish species we have, we are connected to places like Lake Michigan and further downstream the Illinois River and the Des Plaines River that have some of these species that have come back into our system. So we're lucky to have some natural connections to other waterways that already had these species. Now we do some stocking, but I wouldn't say that's how those species have come back. So we do, Friends works with the DNR. We stocked a lot of channel catfish. We stocked some northern pike over the years. And then what was the CSO half of the question?
That is there a way other than decreasing CSOs that TARP has impacted the water quality?
That's TARP is focused on decreasing CSOs. So that's the way that TARP has affected water quality. So TARP is designed to be finished in 2029. So if we keep moving in that direction, you know, as you highlighted, climate change is playing a little bit with how effective it's, you know, it's going to virtually eliminate CSOs, but we'll still have to deal with a little bit of that after it's finished. But until that point, we're going to have CSOs and combined sewer overflows into the river. So as much as we can deal with that water on the front end from going into the sewers, like you highlighted, that will have a big impact.
Right. Austin, anything to add to that? Otherwise, we'll go to the next question. Awesome. All right, let's see. We have, how many of the new fish species are invasive or detrimental to these ecosystems? And Austin, we'll go with you on that.
Yeah, sure. Most of the species that we're seeing come back are native species, so that's great to see. A couple of the invasives we have in the area have been around for quite a long time. So common carp and goldfish have been around for over a century, probably. Some new species that have shown up would be that pond loach that I mentioned, which I think showed up in the 60s maybe and has slowly kind of spread. We haven't seen a huge impact from them. They tend to eat things that fish native to this area don't really consume. And then we've had round goby spread. So round goby have come from the Great Lakes and have made it in through the locks and dams and are probably the more recent invasive species in the area. And those guys can outcompete species like darter, who are maybe prone to eating bugs they find at the bottom of the water. Round goby are really adept at eating bugs at the bottom of the water too. But other than that, we don't see a whole lot of invasives really taking hold and exploding. So
awesome. Okay, and that question came from Joey Romero. The previous question came from Sarah Burry, and I'm looking. Leslie Shad, you asked a pretty cool question that I missed. Sorry about that. Who's missing? So we've got 80, but like, who's MIA out there? What do we have to look forward to the future? Austin or John, who wants to take that one? I feel like Austin, that might be your neck of the woods.
I think they've been mentioned throughout, probably John talking more, maybe he's mentioned them, but some species we don't see a ton of, or we don't see frequently, would be things like darters, who are really sensitive to habitat types. They really like that bubbling brook style of water, which we don't have a great way of offering within the navigational waterways. But we might be able to see them in some of the smaller streams, like the area where they took out that dam now has these huge riffles over in River Park. And so maybe some darters can show up there, which will be great to add to our species list. John mentioned sturgeon would be really cool to see in the area. They're species that stay at the bottom and can be pretty sensitive to water quality. And then I'm really rooting to see more gar and northern pike in the area. They're pretty sensitive to habitat types. They really like to spawn in like wetlands. So areas where plants are rooted underwater and the plant comes up above the water. They really like to find those areas to spawn. So if they came back, it would mean that we're starting to offer this new habitat type to the area.
Awesome, cool. And then another question from Leslie: are there studies of amphibians on MWRD land or waterways? They're obviously in trouble and an indicator species. John, could you take that question?
I can't speak to specific studies on MWRD properties around amphibians. I know that's something that lots of people are looking at. And I would encourage people, that's another area where people can get involved to help out. So the Forest Preserve District of Cook County, Friends has some programs where people can do wildlife monitoring. So going out and helping us count turtles and frogs and bats and other kinds of birds that are indicator species of environmental quality, like amphibians are, that help to build that knowledge base.
Thank you. Richard Campbell asks, where can someone find the locations of the floating islands if they wanted to visit one? Austin, would you be able to answer that?
Yeah, so I sent a link in the chat to the website that Urban Rivers runs about the Wild Mile project. That project, I tend to tell people, is near the North and Clybourne Red Line stop. If you get off there and walk over the North Avenue or over towards the REI that's in that area, you can go out on a dock and actually see those islands pretty close. And then there are some floating wetlands that are on the downtown Riverwalk that Friends of the Chicago River helps maintain and keep up. So you can go to the downtown Riverwalk and see them, or you can go up near the North and Clybourne Red Line stop, up near Goose Island, that area, and see them over there.
Awesome. And what does your work look like 5-10 years from now? What's the outlook? John, what is the Friends of the Chicago River planning for 5-10 years?
5-10 years, I think that we're just going to see more and more exciting developments. I think those floating wetlands that people want to see are going to be a lot more common throughout the system. I think, some of the work that Austin's looking at and the Shed's looking at with the South Branch is going to be really exciting to see. I think if you took somebody that lived along Bubbly Creek in 1980 and put them in a time machine and jumped them to 2030, their mind would explode because they would be shocked at what's going to happen there. And then just, I think you're going to keep seeing more and more recreational opportunities. I also work on with the Chicago Harbor Safety Committee, which is all the mariners that operate boats downtown, and they're all planning for lots and lots of kayakers and paddle boarders and things like that on the river. And I think that's what we're going to see in the future for sure, just as the water quality continues to improve and as we continue to add amenities like the dam removal river park that lets fish go upstream and people go downstream. I think that's what sort of the future is for this river.
Mm-hmm. Austin, what's the shed aquarium planning for the next 5-10 years?
I mean, I'm hoping that the Chicago waterways can be fishable, swimmable. That would be a great milestone to kind of meet. But beyond that, beyond being fishable, if we could actually start hosting fishing tournaments that are in the area, that means we have got populations that are growing to old age. Fish continue to grow as they age, so getting some of those really large individuals that attract fishing tournaments means that the ecosystem itself is doing really well, that we're able to support those long-lived older individuals. So that's what I'm hoping for in the future, is that we can keep fighting towards a waterway that we can recreate in and that we can also fish from. And we'll see as we head towards that. We're getting close.
And we also had a question on the Asian carp. So what's going on with these guys? I know we're not fans of the Asian carp as far as being in our waterways, but we do want to promote the consumption. So they're quite yummy to eat. But what's the status of them in our waterways? John, we'll go with you.
Yeah, I spent probably more time than I wish I have on this issue. So I spent a lot of time. You'll notice that Austin did not name the Asian carp when he listed the invasive species that are in our waterways, because that's sort of the status. Is they're still many miles downstream of us, but it's a constant battle that we have to wage to keep them where they are and to keep pressure on that population and to keep reducing it and hopefully one day eliminate it. So there's big plans to spend money at Brandon Road Lock to do some refurbishments there that will hopefully discourage that fish from moving throughout the ecosystem. We have the electric barrier still, but it's something that we're going to have to look at. The Chicago Area Waterway System is not the only link between the Great Lakes and the Asian carp. So it's definitely a management issue. And like you said, there's lots of ways to reduce the population. So go out and eat those Asian carp burgers, I guess.
All right. And the final question is, what do you wish people knew about our waterways that is not common knowledge? We'll go with you, Austin.
I was like, I have to think about it for a second, but then I was like, oh, we talked about it before we started this whole thing. Most people don't know that there's like a thriving fish community within the waterways. A lot of people, or a lot of Chicagoans, have never touched a fish, let alone thought that they lived within the waterways. So I wish and hope that as we continue to do these events, we can convince people that not only are there tons of fish there, you can catch them, and their community is doing really well.
And John?
Yeah, I think we touched on a ton of that today, but I think in addition to that, I hope people understand how connected they are to our waterways. So we do a lot of work on tributaries and feeder streams to the river, and whether it's up in the far northern suburbs in Lake County or Mill Creek in the southwest suburbs, people don't often know that that's part of the Chicago River system, and that's the same river that goes downtown, and it's all connected. And to make sure that people understand that they have a connection, whether it's through the drain in their house or that little stream that they go to in their nearby park.
Yeah, I would say that for me, and I saw that Sarah Burry commented on this, catfish safe spaces. That's her favorite new fact about the river. That's certainly my favorite fact when I thought of the little catfish just burrowing in there to feel safe. We're we're coming to the end. Looks like we've shared some links. We do have the biological survey report with information on amphibians to answer one of those questions more specifically on what work MWRD is doing. And we dropped our email there. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Go out and fish or clean up, participate in one of the many events that the Friends of the Chicago River offers. They often do river cleanups, and awesome. The event is this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, right? And give us the location again.
Yeah, so Saturday and Sunday, the Backwards River Festival is happening at Park 571. Park 571 straddles the outlet of Bubbly Creek and the south branch of the Chicago River down in Bridgeport. And so from 11 to 6, people from various organizations will be out helping people take back the river as a resource that people can use and enjoy. So we invite you all to come out and see us there.
And if you haven't signed up, I'm having an environmental stewardship day with the district, and Marcelino Garcia, who's the chairman of finance. This is in honor of Latinx History Month. That will be at Possum Hollow in LaGrange, and we did include the chat. You do have to register, so we are going to have a day of doing a guided hike, seeds, collecting seeds. We're going to do some plant identification. We're going to have a poetry reading, so I'm really excited about that. A little bit of cafecito, pan dulce, and that will start tomorrow morning. You still have an opportunity to sign up. And we have some really cool hats that I'm very excited about that say MWRD Latinx with the monarch butterfly. So if fashion is the way to hook you, no pun intended, come on by tomorrow. Bye, guys. Have a great weekend.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Austin.
Yes. Thanks for hosting.